Okay. Hi, welcome to the My Yoga podcast. My name's Marta.
And I am Zoe.
Yay! And we are here, as we are every month, to talk to you about the different themes and focuses that we incorporate at Myriad Yoga into our programming. And this month, we're going to take it in a little bit different direction. So we're going to talk a little bit more about how we create the programming as a whole at the studio. If you come to our classes, and even if you don't, this can be useful information to have. But when you come to our classes, we always have a theme every week, and there's usually poses attached to those themes. And you might not know why we choose specific poses on a specific week, but it's actually very, very intentional. It's not kind of just like throwing spaghetti at the wall to see what sticks, but usually the posture itself is attached to the theme in some way. And it can be really cool to learn more about that and get more insight on it, because it just gives you a whole different perspective to the postures than just whatever physical benefit you're getting out of them. But there is more of the kind of poetic or metaphorical reasoning for getting into the poses as well. Anything you want to add on about that?
Nope, you said it perfectly. Marta writes the programming, so Marta's the expert on the programming.
Oh, I don't
and
know
does a
if
great
I'm
job.
An expert, thank you, but I do write the programming. It's one of my favorite parts of my job, and I spend a lot of time on it. So what we're going to do in this episode is we're going to go through all of our themes for May, and we're going to talk about the poses and why we chose the poses for each week. So we have our overarching theme for May, which is
Awaken.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about Awaken. What does it mean? How are we using it in the context of our programming?
So awaken, by definition, it's kind of funny, to rouse from sleep. And I just feel like that sounds really kind of silly almost, but thinking about it like in the context of spring, we've been talking about that a lot, but we're kind of in this, well, we're not really even in the transitional state anymore. We are in spring now, and so a lot of our personal energy has returned to us. Mm-hmm. So a lot of us are just experiencing this more like alive or invigorated type energy. I think spring just kind of holds that as everything is kind of coming back to life. Mm-hmm. And we can also kind of apply this to our thoughts like as well. I totally lost what I was about to say.
That's okay. I think but what you were saying was like right on the right track, right? It's like the sense of invigoration, like you feel alive, and it's kind of like your mind is more awake.
Yes.
Your intentions are maybe more awake. It's like we were hibernating all winter long. We're kind of coming out of that winter sleepiness.
Yes.
So we can be in that more heightened sense of awareness.
I got like so into what I was saying that
it happens.
I lost it. But yes, but that is what we're talking about this month with Awaken.
Yeah, and we don't always talk about it as much in our studio classes, but there's usually, especially for the teachers, a couple of little poses, if you will, that we attach to that monthly theme. One of those is always a pranayama or a breathing practice. And this month, our pranayama practice is Ujjayi pranayama. Why don't you talk a little bit about Ujjayi pranayama and how it connects to this idea of awakening?
Yeah, Ujjayi is actually one of my favorite pranayama practices in yoga.
And it's a really common one too.
Yeah, so it's also known as victorious breath. And it is really common. I feel like you hear it like cued a lot, like or I have in my experience, like different yoga classes that I've taken.
You might know it as like ocean sounding breath.
Yes.
Darth Vader breath.
Yeah. I liked, there was a way of explaining it that you used one time in class where you're talking about like when you're exhaling as if you're like fogging up a mirror, mm-hmm. and you're kind of like creating that sound, but like with closed lips, like sending that sound to the back of the throat. That's kind of the sensation that you're getting physically like from Ujjayi breath. But then kind of in the context of awaken, it's exactly what I was saying. Like Ujjayi breath is like a very energizing and invigorating breath, which is perfect in the context of spring because we are igniting that energy, and all of that is, returning to us. We want to like kind of continue on that uphill swing as we've come out of our wintry sleep. So it can help us do that.
I think you hear the name like victorious, and it's very much like the emotions or the feelings you might attach to the word victorious are very uplifting. They're big and bold and alive, very much alive when I hear that word victorious. Like you can't be asleep and feel victorious. Maybe you can, but
I don't know, my dreams are pretty wacky, but
but there's this sense of kind of call to action, I think, when you hear that as well.
Yeah.
And there's a little bit of that in the spring, is this call towards action.
Yes.
Yeah. And connected with that, we usually have a mudra, which is a hand gesture, and then a mantra that I write as well, just something to consider. And our mudra is Chitta Mudra, so thumb and pointer finger come together, and then the other fingers touch. This mudra really helps us connect with our consciousness, and it helps create a sense of calm and happiness, but also kind of this doorway towards the extending cosmos around us. So this openness to more perception outside of our own scope. And I think part of awakening is having that ability to see something outside of just your narrow-minded vision as well, which is kind of an overarching theme over the month with all of our postures and weekly themes. And with that, the mantra is today is a new day, this hour is a new hour, and every moment is an opportunity to start anew. Because when we awaken, right, every day that you wake up is a brand new day to start something new. And that's a really big theme in yoga. It's one thing I love so much about yoga is you're not perfect all the time, that's okay. But as long as you're creating the intention, you're like always aware of what you're doing, you can always start over and have that reawakening happen at any moment, no matter what has come before.
Well said.
Thank you.
I feel like that leads us really well into our first weekly theme of the month, which is Yoga Sutra 1.1, which is
Hatha Yoga Anushasana. I have to say it slowly so I get it out right. And that translates as now begins the practice of yoga. And our sutras come from Patanjali's Yoga Sutras. That's where a lot of the teachings that we use at Myriad Yoga come from. Not all of them, but many do come from the Yoga Sutras. And most yoga teachers in their 200-hour teacher training, which is what we do to get certified as a teacher, learn about the Yoga Sutras. It's something that as a student in class you might not know as much about, but I highly recommend. There's lots of kind of little hack books on easy ways to understand the sutras, and looking some of those up can be a really nice way to add some more context to your yoga practice. But when we talk about Sutra 1.1, now begins the practice of yoga, the really big word here is now. I really like to emphasize now in that sutra because it is in this moment right now that we are beginning yoga. It's not, whatever we carried into the room with us. It's not what we're about to do after this. It's right now. And it also reminds us that yoga doesn't just happen on our yoga mat, but it happens when we wake up. It happens when we go to the grocery store. It happens when we get in an argument with a loved one. Now is always the moment to call to mind our yoga practice and how that can help us navigate life in a lot of ways. So we've got two postures associated with that theme. And each week we always have what we call like our gentle or our passive pose and then our active pose. So let's start with the active pose for this one. What's the active pose to go with Sutra 1.1?
So our active pose is cat-cow, and in Sanskrit that is?
Bhitilyasana Marjariasana, which is actually cow-cat.
Yes. Well, I feel that's so interesting because I've heard it be called like both. From different teachers. But yes, in the traditionally it would be Cow.
It'd be cow posture, cat posture.
Well, we usually do it in that order too. So I guess that
we
would
do. I think
make
cat
sense.
cow just rolls off the tongue easier.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So yeah.
But anyway, cat cow. This is something that you might not do it in every single yoga class, but I would say most times you're coming to your mat, you're probably doing like some sort of variation of cat cow, and it's a very simple movement, right? I mean, we're just focusing on the spine. In our cow pose, we're dropping the belly to the floor, and it's usually on an inhale, and then as we exhale, we're pressing away from the mat and finding that rounding sensation through the spine. And it's a really great one to sync up your breath with the movement, right? And when we're doing that, we become more present and more aware of what's happening in our bodies and what's happening inside of us in general. So it applies to that that now concept, right? Like it's drawing us into the present moment, and that's one that we can access even like outside of our traditional 45 or 60 minute mat yoga class, right? Like you can come into cat cow anytime and experience that sensation.
Yeah, cat cow is definitely a fan favorite. I know sometimes I simply put it in my yoga classes because I know people desire to have that feeling in their body, and it is a really great, because it's simple, there's this fluidity to it. I think it does make it really easy to start to tune in and bring deeper awareness into how you're moving and how you're breathing, and really start that intentional part of your practice, rather than if we just walked in here and we're like, everybody jump into warrior 2 right now. It might feel really harsh, but cat cow just feels like a very nice way to start to ease into that, I think, in a lot of ways.
Yeah. And then, so we also have the passive pose, which is?
So full pranam. Depending on the lineage of yoga that you practice or the studio you go to, pranam can be a couple different poses. In this sense, full pranam is lying on your belly on the floor, oftentimes with your arms straight forward, just like you've just fallen over on the floor. And pranam is a salutation or an honoring, which is why we're bowing forward in our pranam pose. You can take this with your arms extended out. Sometimes it could be nice to have a blanket under your head or to kind of prop your hands up as well. But it's just that lying down position. And again, when you're face down on the floor, when you're belly down on the floor, it becomes this really gentle place to start to bring in that sense of awareness. There's a really nice amount of feedback you can get with your breathing into the floor, kind of feeling the belly lift and lower from the floor as you breathe. You might be able to sense the rise and fall of the back of the body as you breathe. And it just gives you a moment to kind of check in and see what you're starting with before you get into a practice. And it's another easy one to come to at any point in the day. Of course, maybe if you're in an office setting, laying down face down on the floor might be a little odd, but if you've got space where you can find somewhere to just lay down and simply check in with your breath, it helps you remember, like, okay, I can start this now. I can come back into my calm state anytime that I want to. And that really provides a nice space for that. Plus, I also like it tied back to awakening, because of course you're lying on the ground, and once you start to come out of this pose, there's this sense of, okay, I'm getting up, I'm coming back to life, like I'm ready to start things and be awake right now.
The thing that you said about like laying on the floor in your office, I don't know, that was just really funny to me. But it just made me think of something I say sometimes is, have you laid on the floor about it? Like sometimes, like
yeah.
if I feel like overwhelmed by things, I'm like, I just need to lay on the floor like for a minute. So maybe
it's comforting. It's really grounding to be on the floor.
Yeah.
There's this sense of like support that you get when you're just lying on the floor. Babies lie on the floor a lot. Like,
so true.
It's a place that we naturally come from when we're really small. It's just lying down. So it's super comforting.
Well, I do love to lay down.
I definitely thought you were gonna like reference a TV show or something where someone was laying on the floor in their office.
No, it is like laying on the floor.
Me too.
Anyway, enough about laying on the floor.
Yeah, let's talk about our next week. So that's week 1. After that, we go into our next theme, which is Bija. So tell us a little bit about Bija.
Yeah, so Bija means seed, or this metaphorical idea of seed, or like the creation of something, the start of something. So I'm someone who's really into manifestation. So for me, I think of the idea of manifestation when I think of Bija, but springtime is a great time to set intentions for yourself, to, like, I don't really feel like New Year's is like a good time for me to set goals, because it's the middle of winter and I just don't feel that like call to start something new during that time. And sometimes I do maybe set some goals, but I'm not like super serious about them. But then when springtime comes, I'm like, okay, I want to be very serious about my intentions and the goals that I have now, because I feel like I have the energy to actually pursue them. So that's what Bija is. It's just like this seed idea or intention that leads us into a bigger creation of some sort.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love what you said about like New Year's being a weird time for setting goals or intentions, because I feel the same. So I think Bija is here to remind us that it's fine if we want to set intentions at New Year's, but maybe you kind of forgot about something and it's like, you know what I want to do? I want to replant those seeds, like give them some fresh dirt, help them wake up a little bit, maybe nourish them some, because they might have been forgotten over the winter, because it's a very sleepy time in the winter, and there is this call to action when the sun starts to come out, when other things around us start growing. You feel this sense of waking up and energy. So we're reminded that we can replant those seeds and give them some new life. So our passive pose for this one is Parsva Garbhasana, which is side fetus pose. So literally it's, you know, fetal position. This is another one that I love, just lying on your side, knees curled in. If you think about a fetus, that shape that we're making, very intentionally chosen, because again, this is another shape that we take a lot when we're very little. It's a shape that we grow from, we expand from. It's very metaphorical of coming from that fetal position, so starting very small and giving ourselves something to grow from, and a place to wake up from as well. So we get that same sense of comfort that we got the week before in Pranam pose. It's maybe a little more awake than that, right? It's getting a little bit up off the ground. We're not fully face down anymore. We've like rolled onto our side at that point. And it's just a nice place to start to consider the seeds, nourish them a little bit with rest, and rise from there. And to pair with that, we have our active pose.
And it's so perfect. It's Vrikshasana, which is tree pose.
Yeah.
So if you think about like the seeds that are being planted, like that is the fruit of the seed that you've planted, right? Like our tree pose is pretty expansive. I'm somebody who really like connects with the energy of trees. I feel like trees are just like this very intelligent life force. Like I feel like I can feel them. I don't know if you like connect with tree energy at all, but
I love trees.
Out of like all of the plants, I'm like, okay, these are like these like ancient creatures a lot of times that can like live for so long, and
they talk to each other.
Yeah. And they just have this very like, even though they're upright, they have this very like grounded and rooted energy. Their roots are like crazy. And so when we plant that seed, and we spend that time watering and nurturing it, then we have those strong roots like a tree. And then we have many different options in our tree pose too. Like, I mean, like there are many different types of trees. So like we can like choose to grow our branches. We can even like sway like branches do in the wind, and we can just really embody that energy. So we're very grounded and rooted, but also growing upright and continuing to grow and expand.
Yeah, tree pose. It's another like classic yoga pose, you know, that I think a lot of people really love. And it's challenging. Like a balance is always really challenging. I think working through whatever intentions we have is usually not easy. It can be a slow process. It can be hard sometimes. But when you get it in tree pose and you find the moment, it's very satisfying to be there. And kind of when you get that light bulb moment of the balance, to be able to hold it feels really good. And I like the symbology of trees because trees, as you said, they're ancient. Trees are so old. They take so long to grow. I don't know if you've ever planted a tree. Some are faster than others, but they start so small. I mean, I get these little saplings in my yard all the time from my neighbor's gum tree. I'm always pulling tiny gum trees. But it's crazy to think that I pull this little thing out of the ground that's this big. It's like really wimpy and small. And then I look at the gum tree that it comes from next door, and it's this massive, gorgeous tree with a huge canopy. It's taken, I don't even know how long to get that big, but it's a really great reminder that we can start with really small intentions and really small goals, and it might take a long time to get there. We might get plucked a couple of times on the way, but that's okay because there's something really magnificent waiting at the end, and you can get there. And sometimes that long, slow journey is just gonna, give you more strength along the way. So it's a really beautiful metaphor, I think, for planting seeds and allowing yourself space and time to work into those intentions.
Yeah, and even when you get there, right? Like even when you get to that goal that you're trying to achieve, like there's still room to grow in that too, because like trees are like continuously growing.
Yeah, and going through seasons of change, shedding leaves and then growing new leaves. So I really love this week. I think you do too, but we get to start as the seed in Parsva Garbhasana and then grow into our tree pose this week, which is just really lovely.
We get to be the seed and the tree.
I know. It's like a chicken or egg situation. Which came first, the seed or the tree?
Well, I would think it's the seed, but I guess who knows?
Where'd the seed come from?
It's too much for this podcast. Okay.
Moving on.
And then going into our next week is
avidya.
Avidya. I feel like I was about to say it wrong, which means
ignorance.
Ignorance.
Yes. This is one of the 5 kleshas. We won't go into all of the kleshas in this podcast, but the kleshas are said to be different concepts that ultimately just bring us pain and suffering. So avidya, the idea of ignorance, is that if we allow ignorance to linger too long within us, it will ultimately just keep us unhappy. It will continue to, pervade suffering into our life. And ignorance can be thought about in a lot of different ways. I think it's really important right now in the modern world. Things are pretty difficult out there, outside of these walls. And it's okay to sometimes we do have to ignore things, right? If you think about ignore comes from the word ignorance. And sometimes you do need to give yourself a break from whatever it is happening out there in the world that's just too much to handle, because we can't be bombarded with stressful things all the time or upsetting things all the time. However, avidya reminds us that if we just continue to have ignorance towards things, it's ultimately not going to help any situation. We're not going to feel better about something by continuing to ignore it or deny it. We have to deal with that discomfort at some point in time. And for all of us, that journey is a little bit different. Some of us might be able to pretty boldly face things that are challenging. Some of us need a little more space to sit with it first. And sometimes it's kind of you're dipping in a little bit at a time, dipping your toes in, pulling them back out. But we're reminded that we cannot continue to be ignorant of everything that's happening all the time that bothers us. And that could be, events that are happening outside in the world. It could be being ignorant of some of our own shortcomings. We're all not perfect, we all have our failings, and sometimes we choose to be ignorant of those things rather than choosing to grow and expand upon those things. So whatever it is, knowing that at some point in time, you've got to face the music, and ultimately you will feel better after you do that, even if it's challenging. So let's talk about, we'll talk about the passive pose first for this one, I think. So the passive pose this week is Urdhva Mukha Pasasana, which is thread the needle pose. So thread the needle pose, in case you don't know, a couple different ways you can take it, but usually we're starting on all fours or maybe in a child's pose, and we're taking one arm and threading it underneath of the other. So we come into this twist in our spine, and we're kind of looking out underneath of our arm. So in thread the needle, the reason why I chose this pose is we're forced to kind of look somewhere besides what's right in front of us. So when we're looking straight ahead all the time, it's easy to put on your blinders and ignore everything that's in your periphery and just keep looking straight ahead and ignore the distractions on the side. But sometimes the distractions are there for a reason. Some things might be calling your attention for a reason sometimes. So in thread the needle, we're reminded to kind of look off to the side, maybe even look off behind us slightly, and notice if there's something there that sparks interest or needs to be addressed. So we're also getting this really nice thoracic rotation, which feels really good. But yeah, just the reminder to look outside of our own perspective and not just keep the blinders on. Yeah, and then once you've done that, that kind of builds into the active pose of the week.
Yeah, so the active pose for that week is Ashtha Chandrasana. Feels like a mouthful sometimes, which is a high crescent pose. This is one I really like. It's simple, but very effective. So we're in like a high lunge position, so that back knee is lifted, usually the back heel is lifted, the arms are usually extended overhead, and we're facing the front. So like you were talking about, looking somewhere else, like other than what's right in front of you, we're kind of doing the opposite of this pose. We're looking straight ahead with this one, and it's kind of like a call to action.
Yeah.
So anything that we've maybe been ignorant to, I like to think about it in the sense of like my own thoughts or emotions. I know that if I don't want to deal with something and I suppress it, it's just going to keep coming back. So instead of trying to look somewhere else or keep trying to distract myself, like it's best to just focus straight ahead and take action to work through whatever is coming up. So it invites us to do that.
Yeah, and I think another thing that I really love about this pose, I really like breaking down the Sanskrit names of poses because sometimes the names are very illuminating. And Ashtha Chandrasana is, Ashtra's 8 and Chandra's the moon, so it's crescent moon. And the moon, a lot of times when we talk about the moon, it has this illuminating energy to it. And we can kind of imagine in this pose, this is a way to look straight ahead at what we're dealing with and allow that light to kind of illuminate whatever it is that we might be choosing to be blissfully ignorant of. It's illuminating those dark spaces where maybe you're tucking things into corners and pushing them under the bed, and you're kind of forced to look at it.
It's often for the best.
The tucking things under the bed thing reminds me that I was thinking about thread the needle pose, and I was like, I feel like this is the position you get in when you're looking under the bed a lot of times too, because you're looking for something you've lost or you can't find, because you've probably kicked it aside to forget about it somewhere. So, we're lighting up those spaces, we're looking under the bed, we're pulling out the cobwebs.
Stop putting things under the bed. I'm just kidding. Do whatever you want. Okay, anyway.
We have one more week to get through. So our final week, we're talking about Chitta, and I will let you talk about Chitta.
Yeah, so Chitta is consciousness, and this is another idea that I really love because it's all that is perceived and all that can be perceived, which is so much. There's just so many things with this, so many things that come up for me because I am a very deep thinker and very existential, so I kind of get into this space a lot. But something too with this idea of Chitta that we try to explore in our yoga practice is kind of like quieting some of that, right? Like some of the chatter that comes up, so that idea is Chitta Vritti. And it's not necessarily to completely diminish the chatter that's coming up and all of these things that we're perceiving constantly, but rather like coming into the space where we can slow everything down so that we can kind of see the bigger picture of everything, or things that we didn't necessarily see before.
Yeah, it's like quieting those thoughts. We call it the monkey brain or monkey mind a lot in yoga, so that you can more clearly kind of pick apart the important things to focus on, which can waken you up to something new that you need to pay attention to. Because yeah, there's a lot happening up there all the time. Like chitta is just this cosmic awareness. Like we could technically perceive everything, and that's a lot to take in. So how do we kind of sift and sort through those things and pull out the most useful things in that moment? Yeah, let's, we'll start with the passive pose again, because I want to end, I think, with the active pose for this one. So Anahatasana is our passive pose. Anahatasana, puppy dog pose. This is also, I feel like a lot of the poses I chose this month are things that people really like. Puppy dog pose is a really nice alternative to child's pose. Not everyone loves being in child's pose. It can be some discomfort or uncomfortable compression on the knees sometimes. Our hips may not want to go down that low. So puppy dog pose is similar, but your hips stay lifted up in the air. They're usually kind of tracking over your knees, while your chest, your head and your arms kind of slope down towards the floor. And this is a really big heart opening pose. So as the belly and the chest slide down towards the floor, we get this really nice big lengthening all across the front of the body, which creates this big sense of openness through our heart space. So openness to whatever it is that we might be looking for through our chitta. As we start to quiet some of those distracting thoughts, what are we then opening ourselves up towards to be more aware in that pose? And then also as a back bend, it's very invigorating. Our back bends tend to have this sense of aliveness to them and energy. So even though we can feel pretty restful in puppy dog pose, it also is a more active, restful pose in a lot of ways, because you might not get super sleepy here. You might feel this kind of sense of more alertness when you come out of your back bends. And then that pose, as well as all of our poses for the month, lead into the active pose for this week, which, in case you don't know, usually the last week of the month, whatever the active pose is, everything else has been kind of trickling down the line together to prepare us for this final pose in some way or another. So I'll let you talk about that final pose for May.
It's my favorite.
I know. That's why I'm giving it to you.
So it's King Dancer, or the Sanskrit is
Natarajasana.
Yes. So again, this is another back bend or heart opener, but also we have this balancing element in it also. So this is a very expansive pose that I wouldn't want to do just like like on its own, right? Cold. Yeah, I definitely would want to do some things leading up to it, but because it is this balancing pose and this big back bend that's very expansive, it requires a lot of our focus. And so when we're focusing our energy, it can help with some of that chitta vritti and eliminating some of that distraction, just because we're so focused on the present moment in doing this pose.
Yeah.
Just something I love about it, but also it just feels really good. Like I feel like it's a beautiful pose.
It is. It's a very like bold and expressive pose. Your heart is very, very open in it. You know, you're holding your back foot with your hand while you're balancing. So there is so much happening, and I think the sense of alertness that you brought up is so great, because if you're thinking about something else in dancer pose, it's going to be hard. It's going to be really hard to do that.
Yeah, and I think too, because it's so expansive, like it invites us, as we have this like open heart, to really like come from the place of the heart, right? Like it allows us to have this level of openness, so it's not just only the things that we're perceiving, we're able to kind of look outside of ourselves also, and it might even allow us to like have more compassion and love for the life that's around us.
Yeah. I think this pose also feels like a celebration in a lot of ways. When I get into this pose, it feels, I don't know, it makes me feel happy. I know that that's my experience. That might not be everyone else's experience in the pose, but I feel this sense of happiness and kind of joyfulness in the pose, which I get a lot in the spring, you know? You feel alive, you feel awake, there's so much green around you, you feel active, you're ready to take step and go out into the world, and that brings with it this really lovely sense of joy. Like, I'm here, I'm ready, I want to be out there with you all. You know, doing the things that we need to do to move forward in life, so.
I thought about the, what's that? The song from The Little Mermaid. The
Part of Your World?
No, not that one, but that's a good one too. The I want to be where the people are. I don't know. I've been in a singing mood today, so.
That is Part of Your World.
Is that?
Yeah.
Oh, they're the same song actually.
I'm pretty sure
I don't
it's
know
the
anything.
same song. I bet Ariel loves dancer pose. She probably does it in the water. She's just grabbing her fin.
I'd love to see a mermaid do
has
dancer.
a fin. It'd be more like king pigeon. If you just have one fin, I don't know what it is. Now it's bow pose. It's getting confusing. Anyways, that's probably a good closing. Consider what a mermaid doing dancer pose is. Is it actually upward facing bow, or is it dancer pose or king pigeon?
Let us
all
know.
Three. So quick recap. So in May, we're talking about this idea of awakening. And throughout the month, all of our themes are going to explore this idea of how we can plant seeds of intention, wake ourselves up, find this kind of call towards action, and just be more aware of what's happening in our everyday life, while we remind ourselves that it's hard to make that happen every day, and it's okay if we kind of sidestep, because every moment we have a chance to start over and begin that process anew. Anything else to add? Just your salute?
I just felt like giving a salute to
You
that.
do that a lot, so.
I do. I am like I don't know why I do that, but it's just something that I do.
Okay.
Okay.
Signing off. Bye. Oh,